Hey guys, today I'm going to show you exactly how to record your guitar instrumental songs and make them sound awesome. Now, I'm going to show you two methods to record your instrumental guitar songs, and the first one's going to be extremely simple, and this is going to be perfect if you just want to put down an idea to present that maybe to a band or even a producer. It's like, hey, I've got this cool idea, but you want more than just a recorded guitar track. You want that to have some substance behind it, and you could even use this first method to record stuff for social media if you want a little bit of background music behind one of your videos or something like that. But then I'm going to expand. We're going to take things to a whole nother level after that, and I'm going to show you the process of actually how I record my guitar instrumental songs and how I get them to sound so crisp and clear. Now, before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel and ding the little bell so you get notified every time I release a video like this one. So we're in the studio here. You've already got your DAW pulled up, your recording software is up, you got your session open, and the first thing I want you to do is I want you to add two new tracks. The first track we're going to add is going to be the obvious one. That's going to be for our guitar. Now at this point, because that's our guitar track, I want to go ahead and prep it so that we're ready to record. So if you're using plugins, now's a good time to go ahead and drag those plugins, whatever plugin you're using, over to that track. If you're recording a live amp, if you're miking an amp, of course you don't need to add any plugins or anything like that, but you're still going to use this track to record your guitar. The second track I want you to add is going to be your drum track. Now in this case, I'm going to drag over Toontrack's Easy Drummer. Now you may say, Jason, dude, I don't have the money to purchase Easy Drummer or some drum program, or I don't want to, whatever the case may be. One thing I want you to remember here though, real quick, you do want some kind of beat to your music here, because remember, this video is about recording your own guitar instrumental song, not guitar track. We're adding more substance to our guitar idea that we had, and we want to make it into something. We want to create something awesome with it. But if you don't want to use a drum program, chances are your DAW has some sort of drum beats or drum loops that you can use right there. I'm using PreSonus Studio One, for example, and I've got a folder here that I've got all these loops. Now, they're not great sounding drums, but if I didn't want to purchase a drum program, or I just didn't want to use one for whatever reason, I've at least got something in there that can complement my guitar, and you just make do with what you have. The next step in this process, and this is probably one of the more crucial ones, is finding the perfect BPM, or the perfect tempo that fits your new song that you're about to record. And what I like to do is I like to kind of go through the drum loops. And again, I'm using Easy Drummer here. If you're using loops in your DAW or some other system, just click play on different loops and play along with that, and then adjust your BPM accordingly. So you're kind of doing two things here at one time. You're finding the perfect BPM, or the best BPM for your song, but you're also trying to find a loop, a pattern that fits your song as well. And this can be a little time consuming, but that's okay. Spend time on this. Try to find that best fit for your song. But the goal is just to find the best pattern and the best BPM that fits your song. Now, once you find that, what I want you to do is drag that loop into track number 2. So you've got that starting point there. Next, I want you to duplicate that, just that one little loop that you just put in there, duplicate that to however long you think your song is going to be. What I do personally is, for like actual songs, I'll duplicate that out to like 3 to 4 minutes long, so I've got a steady drum pattern across the board. And you can do that with any loop, whether it's from a drum program or if you're grabbing loops from your DAW or whatever. Just duplicate that. If it's a 30-second song, just duplicate that for like 30 seconds worth. You know, again, we're just using this as a starting point, and then we're also using this as our metronome, because I'll tell you what, man, like the worst thing to do is record to a click track, man. That is so dull and unmotivating. So I prefer you to lay that first guitar track down to an actual drum pattern. Now it's time to record that guitar track, and this is the really fun and cool part. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to record a simple guitar track right here in front of you. I have no idea what I'm about to record, by the way. I'm kind of just make this stuff up on the fly, but here it is. Now, this is a very simple and kind of dumbed down version of recording your guitar instrumental song, but we're not stopping here. We're about to greatly expand on this, but at this point, what you have right now is at least good enough to present to your band if you have a new song idea, because now you've got some drums behind it and they can really hear the context of your rhythm here, of what you're playing. Or if you want just some like light background music at a low volume to put on one of your videos for social media or YouTube or whatever, this will probably fly for that as well. But again, we're about to dive deeper. Now you're probably waiting for me to say, but wait a minute, Jason, I like the simple process, but I want to record a lead guitar track as well. We're gonna get to the lead guitar, but I'm actually saving that for the very end here, because that's the last thing I record is the lead guitar, and I'll tell you why when we get to that part. And if you're gonna record a lead guitar track, I highly recommend you go through the rest of these steps that I'm about to share with you as well, because it's just going to make your song sound that much better. Now we're going to dive deeper and take things to the next level. So what I do at this point is I like to go back and revisit the drums. And the reason I do this is because you don't want just the same pattern across the board for, you know, every second of the song. You want to mix things up. You want different loops for your intro. You want to make sure your verses and choruses have different drum patterns, maybe a bridge, guitar solo, however you have your song structured. And even if it's just like a quick, I don't know, 20-30 second song, you still want to have some different patterns thrown in there just to kind of break things up a little bit. Otherwise the song just gets boring. So what I do is I just go into whatever program I'm using. And again, if you're not using a program, if you're just, you know, essentially you're going to use loops no matter what you're doing, right? If you're pulling loops from your DAW or you're using loops from EasyDrummer or any other program, you're just going to use different loops for those different pieces of your music. So spend a little time on that. You don't have to get into super deep editing if you don't want to do that. I don't personally. One more thing I'll say about drums, and we're about to get to some more guitar stuff here because this is going to be awesome, but one really quick thing on drums. If you're just recording music for your band to listen to, or for like a demo, or for social media, YouTube, whatever, anything that's not going to be professionally released, I am 100% okay with using drum loops or, you know, drum programs or whatever. I know people call them fake drums, and sure, they're fake drums, but for this purpose, I am 100% okay with that. I'm okay with you guys doing it as well. Not that you would care. Well, of course you care. If it's a professional release though, if this is something that you're gonna put out there, you know, for the world to hear, like on iTunes, Spotify, and it's gonna be an actual release, I do recommend using a real drummer, just hiring a real drummer. I have a drummer that I hire for my releases since the last release I did in 2019, and it just makes a world of difference. So I just want to throw that side note out there. Just, you know, consider that if you're doing a professional release, hiring a real drummer to do that, it's just going to make your music sound that much better and that much more organic. So now we're going to go through a little mini process here with a rhythm guitar, and this is going to be a lot of fun, guys. And actually, this is going to be one of those things, if you have not recorded with the method I'm about to show you, it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be one of those things you're like, holy crap, I didn't know my music could sound so freaking awesome. You're really gonna love this. So here's what I want you to do. So first thing is I want you to take your guitar track you recorded, that track itself, not the music you recorded, but just the track, and I want you to duplicate that track. Again, don't carry over the actual recording. All we're doing is duplicating that track, and the reason why we're duplicating that is because that's gonna carry over your plugin. And I assume a lot of you are using plugins these days anyway, and especially for stuff like we're talking about here, recording guitar instrumentals. If you mic'd an amp, if that's how you recorded, you still need that second guitar track, but you don't need to necessarily duplicate it. However, again, if you have a plugin that you're playing through, duplicate that, and that will carry over that plugin to that next track. So it's just one less step you have to do of dragging a plugin over to that new track. Less clicks, it makes the process a little bit more smoother. Normally, when you duplicate that track, it's gonna open that plugin up. Here's what I do. While that's open, I make a slight variation, just a slight change to that second guitar track sound, okay? What I do, and this is all I do, is I'll either change the cabinet if that's what the plugin allows, or I'll just change the mics out just to have a slight variance, because what you want a slightly different tone for both guitars. You don't want the exact same tone. Now, if you're miking an amp, what you'll do in that case is just move that mic over just a little bit, enough to get a slight variance. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to take that first guitar track and I want you to pan that all the way to the left, all the way, 100% to the left. Then take the track you're about to record, that second guitar track, and I want you to pan that one the opposite direction, go all the way to the right. Now, those two tips, guys, those two recording tips alone, it just changes everything for your guitar instrumental songs. And the reason why is when you have two guitars just going up the middle, they're gonna be kind of competing against one another. But when they're panned, when you've got one hard pan left and then the other's hard panned right, your sound is gonna sound full and organic and so lively. Not to mention, remember, we made just a slight variance in that tone for the second guitar track. So that even gives it a more organic sound, and it's just gonna bring so much life to your music, to your guitar instrumental. Now we're gonna add a fourth track, and no, it's not the lead guitar track. We're not there yet. We are gonna get there though, but remember, that's the last thing I record, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes, or in a minute. What I'm doing now is recording the bass guitar track. So I'm gonna add a fourth track. I'm gonna name it bass. Now I don't duplicate this track because I actually use a completely different plugin for my bass, or you may be miking your bass, you may be miking an amp rather, and that's fine too. Whatever method you use, you still need a bass guitar track. Now, a lot of you are gonna kind of stop here and like, well, Jason, dude, I don't even own a bass guitar, you know, and I really don't want to pay somebody to play bass for this or whatever. If you're using this for just like social media or just to share an idea with your bandmates or friends or just put something out there on SoundCloud, you know, you can more than get away with doing that with what you have at this point. But I would rather you record that bass track. If you have a bass, there's no excuse not to record it. Or if you know somebody that plays bass, I'd say, hey dude or dudette, come on over and please record this track for me. I'll buy you a beer or pizza or something like that. Now at this point, guys, you've got a full, true instrumental guitar song. Like, it's ready to go. Of course, you've got some other things you need to do to it if you're gonna like professionally release it, and I'll kind of touch on those in a little bit here. But I know a lot of you are gonna want to add that lead guitar in because you're a lead guitarist. So let's talk about the lead guitar track. Go ahead and add that track into your studio and just name it lead guitar or solo or whatever you want to call it. And what I do here is I also, if I'm using that same plugin I use for my rhythms, you know, I'll just duplicate that track so that it carries over my plugins. I think most DAWs do that. I hope so anyway, because I've been talking about that, and if you guys can't do it, you're gonna be like, what's Jason talking about? Is he crazy? A little. And of course, I'm gonna use a slightly different tone as well for my lead track than I do my rhythm tracks. I know that sounds obvious to some of you, but to some of you it may not be obvious, and the reason I want to point this out is because there's some things you want to do to your lead track to help it cut through the mix, because you've got your guitars there, your rhythm guitars, and you know, those are kind of dominating sometimes, especially if you're playing rock and roll or metal style music. A few things I do to my lead track, and I'm gonna kind of touch on EQ. I know when you get into EQ and stuff like that, it's really kind of to each their own type thing because we all like different sounds. But a few things I do though to help my lead track cut through the mix. Number one, I give it more gain than my rhythm tracks. I don't use a lot of gain on my rhythm tracks, by the way, even though I play metal and melodic death metal. I give it more gain, I give it more mids. And I also might boost the treble and presence just a little bit, but I don't want it to sound too bright, but I'll boost them just a hair if it calls for it. But another thing I do, whether using a plug-in for this or if you're miking a live guitar amp, I move that mic a little closer to the center of the cone than I had on my rhythm tracks, because all these things combined is just going to help your guitar cut through the mix a little better, and it's going to be heard, and that's what you want. There are two more steps to this whole process, though, guys. So as you're recording your guitar instrumental song, mix along the way the best you can, because I'm going to go ahead and say it. I know a lot of you are probably just going to mix it yourselves. You're not going to outsource that or pay somebody to mix it for you. And that's cool, especially if you're just putting it out there on social media or SoundCloud or just for your band or friends to listen to. You're not going to want to spend money having someone mix it for you, right? Because that can be costly. But what I will say this is, do your best to really just sit back and listen to things as you record them and play them back. And then once you have your final recording, everything's done, then dump that down to an MP3 and go listen to it in other sources like your car, headphones, your computer, wherever. Because a lot of times what sounds great in the studio may not sound great in the sources that people listen through every single day. So you want to make sure it sounds good in all those different sources. And again, the best way to do that is just dump that thing down to an MP3 and go listen to it in those other sources. Now, mastering, I can't help but think of Master of Puppets right now, which people tend to think that mastering has a lot to do with just loudness. However, it's much more than that. And I don't even understand that process, to be honest with you. I outsource my mastering. I only send the songs off for mastering that I'm actually professionally releasing as a single or an album that I'm actually putting out there on CD for people to buy in Spotify, iTunes, you know, all those good places. So I will get it, you know, professionally mastered to that point. In fact, I've done all my own mixing up to this point. I'm about 4 albums deep. Yeah, 4 albums deep now. My next album, my 5th album, I'm actually highly considering sending that off to a professional to be mixed as well as mastered. So again, though, if you're releasing stuff on social media and just, you know, just non-professional, then it's totally okay just to mix it yourself and just get it out there, put it out there, and there it is. That's your guitar instrumental song. Now, on a separate note, no pun intended, I've got a metal guitar practice guide that I'm giving away. I know a lot of you probably have it already, but if you don't, there's a link in the YouTube description to go check that out. Guys, if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask them in the comments. I always try to respond back to you, and a lot of times we spark some really cool conversations in the comment section, especially on videos like this, because, you know, recording can kind of get in depth, and, you know, there's a lot of walls that you hit in the process, you know what I mean? So I've hit them as well. So again, if you have questions, please leave those in the comments below and let's talk about them. Guys, thank you for watching my video. Thanks for all the support. Until the next time, keep it metal.